if that means that that right reward is lower than the profit that that entity earned before, it's still okay, provided you've gone through the steps that we discussed. Tax authorities may want to look at entirety of arrangements, and validly so. Presence of tax motive is not sufficient for non-recognition. Again, this is something which OECD clearly opines that just because you've undertaken a restructuring for a tax motive, that by itself should not be the reason for disregarding that. Again, the jurisprudence on this globally is changing significantly. Even in the US, I think they have now sought to document their doctrine of economic substance, which seeks to codify the same principles based on which transactions will be disregarded for tax purposes. Again, in India, the way our jurisprudence is evolving is that if you have undertaken an arrangement purely for saving some taxes, then that can be challenged. So this is what the OECD is saying. Documentation requirements are stringent. I'll just take a couple of other points on the Indian environment. We talked about the interplay between Section 92 on one hand and Article 9 of the treaty, and how Article 9 is much wider. Let's also talk about a couple of other things. That what else happens when there is restructuring? Okay? Because it's one thing to just restructure and advise your client about restructuring, but the other aspect is to also take a look at the other things that happen. You will find that when supply chains are changed or restructured, and pricing arrangements undergo changes because of changes in functions, assets, and risks, often the transfer prices of goods or services also change. And consequently, there will be customs exposures. Okay, so you should bear that in mind. That from our perspective, if there is a restructuring, then as a consultant, you should consequently also talk about addressing customs issues, because there will be impact on transfer prices. Consequently, or conversely, if you see significant changes in import prices of your customers, then the next logical question that you ought to ask is that what has happened outside of India because of which those import prices are changing. Because those import prices may be an indication that there has been a restructuring. Okay? You can have service tax ramifications. For example, I give you the example of a new Indian company where the Indian company does not have decision-making ability, similar to how most MNCs operate. So foreign companies usually take strategic decisions outside India for all their entities around the world, and there is really no mechanism to align profitability with decision making. So if the Indian company launches a product, and if that product is successful, then there is no way to reward the foreign company for the decision which it took, because of which that outcome happened. Conversely, if the product launch decision fails, there is no way to shift that loss to the foreign company. So as a result of these kind of issues, and tax authorities are getting into this more and more. In fact, I will share with you that in the OECD initiative of base erosion and profit shifting, OECD in the section on transfer pricing has clearly said that their objective is to align profitability with where value is getting created, which essentially means only this, that if there is decision making in a certain entity, then is that entity bearing the outcome of that decision making, and whether transfer pricing is here to address that properly or not. So in the situation that I gave you, if you decide to shift losses to the foreign company or to pay out residual profit to the foreign company, because that's where the decision actually happened, you may have service tax consequences around. Keep that in mind. As you change structures, you can have permanent establishment type of consequences coming through. So if you are changing distributors into agents, you can have P issues. If you do not, if you're changing a full risk distributor into a low risk distributor, and if you do not restructure the low risk arrangement in a right way with proper documentation, tax authorities can allege that you are a distributor only on paper, but otherwise you are akin to an agent, and they can allege a P. So P issues you have to deal with. You can have company law related approvals that may be required. For example, under the Erstwhile Companies Act, and I'm sure the new one as well, transfer or substantial transfer of an existing undertaking requires shareholders' approval. And what is an undertaking for that section is not defined. So what happens in a situation where you restructure yourself from a full risk entrepreneurial manufacturer to a low risk manufacturer for the export market, and consequently you transfer the entrepreneurial right to exploit your intangibles in the export market to an overseas entity? Is that the same as substantial transfer of an existing undertaking for all practical purposes, therefore requiring shareholders' approval? You need to think about this. Okay. Corporate governance is becoming a big issue now, and especially when listed entities restructure, and which has impact on P&L accounts. Bear in mind that independent directors of the company will be interested in it. So these are associated triggers. From a taxability standpoint, when restructuring happens, how do you go about determining how the exit payment, so to speak, how would it get taxed? Okay. Now again, as I mentioned, if you go through the various phases, you would first look at, is the restructuring itself arm's length? We talked about the tests. Having satisfied yourself that it is arm's length, you will then decide, is a one-time compensation due? Now when you decide that something is due to be paid as a one-time compensation, you have to drill it down into what are you paying that compensation for? Are you paying it for transfer of intangibles? Are you paying it for transfer of risks? Are you paying it for transfer of risk-taking functions? Are you paying it for transfer of rights? Depending upon how you break that exit payment into the various components, your taxability can change. So it may or may not qualify as a capital asset for tax purposes. Capital asset includes property of any kind, so therefore rights, transfer of rights will be a capital asset for tax purposes. So you can have capital asset, capital gains implications. Sometimes it may even be a capital receipt which is not subject to taxability. Okay. Sometimes when you are transferring functions, you have to look at applicability of section 28 on non-compete, whether it gets covered over there. So taxability has to be viewed in the context of what are the components of the exit charge and how each component has to be taxed separately. So in an Indian context, the things I want to just summarize is, one is, bear in mind there will be associated triggers to a restructuring, number one. Number two, taxability can take various forms, what we just discussed. Number three, the interplay between section 92 on one hand and article 9 on the other hand. And number four, some of these tests that we talked about on when can revenue authorities disregard transactions, some of those tests are enshrined in a different language in our own GAR, and we have to be mindful of that. So with that, I would end this presentation.
Friends, I hope all of you agree that it was a very, very well thought and well intentioned suggestion of Mr. Pawar that there should be a separation of two sessions. Probably we had in mind to have one restructuring and reorganization session on transfer pricing. I think that even this time what we have allotted to him probably may have been short, because I think he had a lot more to also mention about this subject. And it is very, very important because restructuring, as he pointed out early on when he started off, that probably restructuring isn't captured so easily. Sometimes even as a, not just for an SSE, but even as an advisor, probably we may have a challenge when we tell the client that, okay, there is a transfer pricing implication here. So all the more that we all be aware of these things, because sooner or later, now the reporting is already mandatory, but even before or now later on, things are going to get more and more stringent. And as he said, once GAR comes into play, I think even more. So then we are all caught through various webs, and we need to know that where we are caught in. So I think that itself is very important, and Mr. Pawar is very useful, because I think OECD guidelines has given very extensive literature on this subject, and that he has very well captured in all these points that he has mentioned here. Friends, I would request all of you to carry out this speech.
I don't know if you have